Satanism can be seen throughout history in various forms. The concept of good and evil is visible in Abrahamic religions such as Christianity. Satan is known as the creature in these texts that leads humanity astray. For example, we can see Satan represented in the Bible as the snake who tempted Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. In the past, many groups who engaged in transgressive acts and behavior were accused of devil worship. This can be seen by the groups of witches who were burned at the stake and drowned for performing magic. The practice of Satanism can be split into two beliefs. The first belief is theistic Satanism, which is also known as spiritual Satanism. These believers consider Satan as an objectively existing supernatural being which individuals may communicate and convene with. They believe in magic and magical power of satanic ritual. The second belief is symbolic Satanism. In contrast to theistic Satanism, symbolic Satanism believed that Satan is a symbol of individualism rather than a real being. This form of Satanism was developed by Anton LaVey, who established the Church of Satan in 1966. The Church of Satan is based on the rejection and the opposition of Christian beliefs. Thus, LaVey opposes the Christian symbol of Satan. Peter H. Gilmore describes the members of the Church of Satan as skeptical atheists. LaVey created the Satanic Bible that contained his philosophy, which was one of individualism and personal freedom. The Satanic Bible also contained 11 satanic rules of the earth and the 9 satanic statements in which believers lived their life by. LaVey and his followers view Satan in a positive light, who they believe represents pride, enlightenment, and liberty. At the height of its popularity, the Church of Satan has 7,000 members, including people in the public eye, such as Marilyn Manson.
The philosophy about individuality and self-preservation. It's about, being your own God.
In 1980, a book called Michelle Remembers sent shockwaves over the United States of America. Michelle Remembers was co-written by Michelle Smith and her psychiatrist, Lawrence Pasder. In 1976, when Lawrence was treating Michelle for depression, Michelle screamed for 25 minutes and started speaking in the voice of a 5-year-old. Over the next 14 months, Lawrence spent over 600 hours using hypnosis to help Michelle recover alleged memories of satanic ritual abuse that occurred when she was 5. Under hypnosis, Michelle recalled strange rituals involving knives, masochism, rape, and murder. Furthermore, Michelle also claimed that she endured 81 straight days of abuse in a marathon mega ritual in which the members of the cult summoned Satan himself. Michelle said her mother was one of the people in the cult who was responsible for this satanic ritual abuse. According to LaFontaine, the publication of Michelle Remembers was the catalyst for the moral panic about satanic panic that swept over America during the 1980s and 90s. Even though Michelle Remembers has been highly discredited due to false memory syndrome, it still led to mass hysteria in American society and created a moral panic of satanic ritual abuse. There were meetings in town halls and community centres where anti-Satanist experts gave workshops so that parents could spot the signs of satanic ritual abuse and what to do if they thought somebody was a Satanist. As a result, this caused a modern-day witch hunt, which led to people being falsely accused and some even falsely imprisoned. An example of allegations of satanic ritual abuse is the McMartin Preschool trial. McMartin Preschool was a family-run daycare center in California. In 1983, Judy Johnson reported to the police that her son had been sodomized by his teacher, Ray Buckley. Judy's belief that her son had been abused began when her son had painful bowel movements. Ray was questioned but was not prosecuted due to lack of evidence. However, the police sent a letter to the parents of the students at the school stating that their child might have been abused and that they should question their children. By the spring of 1984, the police believed that 360 children had been abused at the preschool, and 7 people, including Ray Buckley, were arrested.
In what may become one of the biggest child molesting cases ever on record, 7 nursery school teachers were arraigned today on more than 100 counts of child molestation.
The accused include the preschool owner, 76-year-old Virginia McMartin, her daughter, and 2 grandchildren. Finding out just what happened to the McMartin preschoolers in Manhattan Beach, California would spark a national media obsession.
A case which has shocked much of Southern California and caused a lot of parents to worry about the safety of their children,
setting off a panic around the country.
In alarming numbers, preschoolers have been exploited.
Could it be your child?
The media blitz demonstrated unstinting belief that this had happened.
It was sensational and lurid and seemed to always be expanding.
1,400 children in this community have been ritualistically abused.
In addition to child abuse, Judy Johnson made several more bizarre accusations, such as that the staff at the preschool engaged in bestiality and that Ray could fly. However, none of this was proven, and Judy was hospitalized for acute paranoid schizophrenia, and in 1986 she was found dead in her home from complications of chronic alcoholism. Despite the outrageous allegations of satanic ritual abuse, no evidence was ever discovered, and the trial ended in 1990, and all 7 of the defendants were acquitted. It had become the longest and most expensive trial in America. It was found that the interview techniques used on the children were extremely suggestive, which led to false accusations. Others believe that the questioning itself may have led to false memory syndrome. Furthermore, research by Spencer and Flynn showed that children are susceptible to pressure from adults, in particular adults who they see as representing authority, such as doctors and police. This could explain why there were so many false allegations, as children were telling the police what they wanted to hear. However, by the time the McMartin preschool trial had ended, the moral panic of satanic ritual abuse spread overseas to Europe, Australia, and the UK. During 1988, newspapers in the UK began to publish allegations that children were being sexually abused and murdered by secret cults during satanic rituals. Some people believe that the reasons why satanic moral panic had such an influence in Britain was down to Americans spreading their ideas by attending conferences in the UK, publishing papers, and acting as consultants. LaFontaine argues that having accepted the idea of children being sexually abused, which was also first surveyed in America, then the English public will be willing to accept another American discovery of the same issue. An example of the moral panic about satanic ritual abuse in Britain was the 1991 Orkney child scandal. The Orkney scandal was around the same time as other high-profile alleged child abuse cases in Rochdale and Nottingham. On February 27, 1991, police and social workers raided 5 homes in South Ronaldsay, Orkney Islands. 9 children were seized, put into a plane, and taken to foster homes on the mainland. The raids were a response to a report of ritualistic satanic abuse by a girl who, during her therapy sessions with social workers and police, confessed that she and her friends had been abused in a bizarre ceremony. She spoke about adults dancing naked in a circle with music, drinks, and wearing strange costumes. She also said that children would be taken into the middle of the circle and were sexually abused. However, after intensive questioning by social workers and police, none of the children that were seized said they had actually been abused.
The sheriff, who was to hear the proof, dismissed the application. I think he was unimpressed by what he'd heard and what he'd seen.
He had the interviews that were recorded. He'd listened to them all. He'd reached a view that this was total rubbish, that the children were coached, that there was no foundation, and that the children, in his own words, were safer at home. And at that point, we decided to go to Paul Lee at the social work department and demand our children back.
Liz McLean was the social worker who led the interviews. She advocated for controversial new American theories on child abuse and used interviewing techniques that were used in the McMartin case, and as I have already discussed, are incredibly unsuitable to use. Therefore, it can be argued that social workers in the UK were influenced by a then fashionable American theory of child sex abuse, which saw Satanist perverts at every turn. In the book Speak of the Devil, LaFontaine establishes sociological differences between allegations of satanic ritual abuse in the UK and in America. Until 1994, None of the alleged cases of ritual abuse in Britain referred to nurseries or childcare centres. This contrasts with the daycare or preschool institutions of America, in which most of the American cases took place. This meant that parents and family members were accused of abuse in the UK, whereas teachers and those in places of care and authority were accused in America. The ages of children in both countries are also different. Most of the satanic abuse allegations in America were against babies and toddlers, and Finkel Hall goes as far as to say a very young victim is the defining element of ritual sexual abuse. However, in the UK, much older children were involved. The socio-economic position of individuals who were perpetrators and victims where allegations of ritual abuse are made is also an important factor. In America, nearly all of the accusations were made by wealthy middle-class Americans about wealthy middle-class Americans. It was different in Britain. The adults and children involved in satanic ritual abuse were all on the lower end of the socio-economic spectrum. The first cases of abuse in England were in areas of long-term deprivation such as Rochdale and Nottingham. This meant that social services were already familiar with the families before the allegations took place. Moreover, when the children got taken into foster care, there were class differences in vocabulary between children and social worker or foster parent, so it is not surprising that so many children were misused. It wasn't until the mid-1990s that the moral panic of satanic ritual abuse started to disappear. This came as a result of so many people who were accused of ritual abuse being found not guilty. The moral panic of satanic panic is different from other moral panics, as it was a phenomena with no truth behind it, as there was never any evidence found of satanic rituals. However, because of the panic, many lives were ruined from false accusations, and some people are still living with the consequences.
Been proven innocent. It was just like everything was going to start over again and we were just going to go back to how we was a family. That we'd get the kids back and everything would be all normal again, and it's never going to be normal again. But they gave me angry kids back. Kids that didn't understand what had happened to them. Parents didn't understand what had happened to him. And I still, even to this day, I still don't understand why it happened and what for, what was the purpose of it all. Still don't understand it.
In conclusion, Satanism is often seen as a transgressive religion, but this is actually a misconstrued interpretation. It is often secular and harmonious with modernity and in line with contemporary capitalism. In recent years, most ritualistic crimes that people have committed in the name of Satan can be categorized as pseudo-Satanisms. Pseudo-Satanists are people who use Satan as a ruse and to justify their crimes. They are usually heavily under the influence of drugs and are normally already severely mentally ill when they commit these crimes. Therefore, Satanism as a religion had nothing to do with satanic ritual abuse, but for those people who were involved in the moral panic had their lives changed forever.